take a moment for an important piece of business. Across our task, and never has been, it's particularly challenging in the environment that we find ourselves operating in right now. It pays pennies on the hour, and you probably don't get a lot of contacts telling you what a fine job you're doing. And that comes with the territory. So we want to thank you for your service to the children of the community, to the staff members of the school district, and to the community at large. So join me in a round of applause for our board members.
Thank you very much. All right. I'm going to call this meeting of the Committee of the Whole. It's Monday, October 5th, 2020. Members of the audience are welcome to ask questions and share insights on Committee of the Whole agenda items as they are being considered by the school board. Please raise your hand to be recognized by the board president. You are asked to come to the microphone so that everyone can hear your question or idea. We ask that you keep your comments focused on the agenda item being considered. Can I have a roll call, please?
Here.
Michelle Jackson.
Here.
Kate McKinney.
Here.
Nathaniel Melton.
Please note that Mr. Melton is excused this evening.
Deb Olson.
Here.
Marcia Schurz.
Here.
Paul Johnson.
Here.
All right, we're going to move to item C, approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as written?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion is approved. We're going to move to item number 2, presentations. Item A is the referendum project update, and we have Brad Kunkel here from CISA 10.
Good evening. Have a pretty short update for you, but please know that that doesn't mean we haven't been really working full speed as of the last month or so. So things have really started to ramp up. We've continued our bi-weekly meeting with administration, making a lot of success with that. Started having scope meetings this week for each individual school that relates specifically to the CISA-led project. So what's not being full designed, we are starting to put together the bid packages for all that. So looking at 40 to 45 bid packages, there's a lot of information to get in there, make sure we get this done correctly. Some other things that are taking place tomorrow, roof cores are going to be taken for potential asbestos. We don't see a great concern there, but it is a requirement from the state. Jamar is pretty much done with all their work now at the middle school and high school. They are going to be performing training actually tomorrow morning at 7, so they'll be recorded, so any future staff that needs to take a look at that, they can get up trained a little bit. You do also have a service contract with them, so I don't see it as a big issue for making sure they're able to sufficiently run that equipment. We're also reaching out to a playground vendor, starting that design work. Some of that work could possibly interfere with the chiller that's going to be installed at the elementary, so we want to make sure we know the location, the layout, so nothing conflicts there. We've been working on the contractor list. We are at the point where we're close to be able to have a meeting with the district, just make sure that there's no some contractors that the district has bad experiences with, or someone that we potentially missed as well. We have reached out to a few contractors already just to check on interest as well. As of now, I feel quite comfortable that we're going to be sitting pretty well with when we bid this project out and having plenty of competitive bids. As far as the project schedule, that's pretty much timed up as well. We're largely going to be looking at summer 2021 work and summer 2022 work. Where we will have work during the school year is going to be the new addition at the middle school as well as the new addition at the elementary. May also be some mechanical work that goes through the school year, but really looking to push that work out to the summers as much as possible. We will be meeting with some contractors that really have trades that are scope driven, schedule driven. So looking at an earthwork contractor, a general trades contractor, and a mechanical contractor, just to make sure that schedule makes sense to them. And then also once we do get the bids in, award contracts, we'll have an additional meeting just so we can really tighten up that schedule so there's no finger pointing down the road. I had a meeting with SDS last week to really start digging into some of these bid packages, making sure we're going to get the right documents. They're going to be sending out the project specifications here in the next couple of weeks, which is pretty much just a document full of text on really the specifications, the technical aspects of the project. And then by the 1st of November, we're looking again construction documents. We have been working with the district to start working out a tentative bid timeline. I'm thinking maybe at next month's meeting, once we receive all the construction documents, we'll be able to present that timeline. And really at that point, that's all I have for now. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Anybody have any questions? Nope. Well, thank you very
All right,
much.
thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Have a great night.
You too.
you.
All right. We're going to move on to item B, discuss the rails reopening, proposed next steps. Dr. Aslan?
So it's hard to believe, but it's been about 10 weeks since we had our special board meeting back in late July to talk about what the start of the new school year would look like and some of the measures that we had in place in our ongoing effort to keep everybody as safe and as healthy as we're able. So at that meeting back on the 22nd of July, we talked about revisiting where we sat at the October Committee of the Whole meeting, and here we are tonight. So I'd like to start this piece out by having the principals each give you a brief update on what the experience has been in their buildings. We'd start with Mr. Schurz.
Good evening. So I'm going to start out just mentioning a few things as we talk about the challenges, certainly as we open the building again. And one of the goals that I had when we started this process was the dual approach to what we're doing, having the live stream and then also having students face to face. And the live streaming, I think, is going very, very well. The challenge, as always, is we're working towards that ability to be seamless, and that's really going well too. I guess we'll never know, and I'm hoping we never know, but it should be pretty easy. An example certainly would be, I had a student, we've had multiple students that, just like the other buildings, that have shown symptoms, so they're on their way to head home. And, I saw one of those students checking in and actually live streaming her class as she was waiting for a ride home. So they know how to access their classes. They know how to keep their education going. The challenge is, as we'll talk about as we move through tonight, is that 25% that if we don't have them face-to-face, that's where the challenge comes in. So when we got the data from this spring, we actually kept our incompletes open through the month of September. My teachers worked very, very hard to connect with students to try to get them caught up. But again, they had that challenge of catching up with what they missed and then keeping up with what they have. As I suspected, we had 25% struggle. So again, that's something we're looking at as a staff. How do we connect with those kids? And I think certainly we're going to be better off now with all the preparation that the staff has done. And again, my hat goes off to them because we have created some outstanding curriculum and we have moved forward very well. The impact of COVID on the building, I mean, we're struggling still to find that qualified nurse's assistant to take some of the pressure off. I know at one point Josie was our only last one standing kind of thing in the process, and she did a fantastic job. Our nursing staff did an outstanding job, but again, we really need to fill that position and get someone that can take some of the pressure off because it's ongoing. Social distancing has been a big challenge. Where's the challenge the most? Our activities. Again, it's difficult to manage that process. Okay, and again, we'll continue to work at that. I know Matt's working really hard at our events to try to figure out ways to make it safe. The bottom line is, as we started this process, we want, we need to keep our building open, and we need to figure out ways that we can do that safely. And again, so far, so good. I mean, we've, I think, done really, really well. We've met the challenge, and we continue to meet the challenge. The value of our schedule right now, Wednesdays have been fantastic. We have gotten so much, we've focused on our PLC work, which our teachers, because we're cleaning the building in the morning, they're meeting in their PLCs for 2 hours every Wednesday morning. And I have them using a Google Doc and all their PLCs so I can watch what's going on as they record that information. And again, that's been a great piece of work for us to keep that process rolling. Our curriculum development has been a big part on Wednesdays. The professional development that we've looked at, we've been able to do some things. I've been able to do some instruction in educator effectiveness, the evaluation process, which has been super beneficial. We've had multiple technology trainings, and certainly our challenge now during that time is to figure out how to use our Rails time, because when students missed that quarter, all the training we had done with them for 2 years really, I'm going to say, went a little south. So we're really working at how do we use that time that we've created during lunchtime to continue meeting the needs of those students that are struggling. The last thing I was going to mention is homecoming. Homecoming is the 16th of October. Once again, poses some challenges, but I will tell you our students stepped up and realized that homecoming wasn't going to be like years past, because again, they understand the idea that the end goal is that they're able to participate. The last thing I want is our teams not to be able to participate. And if we're doing things that are counter to that, that takes away the probability of our success. So, I think they came up with so far is dress-up days and, doing some kind of a virtual ceremony for king and queen, and really keeping that process that we've created. And again, my hat goes off to them as well, because they understand the situation they're in, and they all want to keep participating. Yeah, so that's kind of where we are. Questions for me?
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Schurz? Thank you very much.
You're
No
welcome.
question. I guess I would just,
Yep.
a couple of things. First, thanks to our staff. If I heard you correctly, that they were catching kids up from last year on
Correct.
incompletes being open, as well as gearing up and starting and catching up kids that maybe they didn't catch last year, but knew this year. So that's incredible. That's an insane amount of work. So thank you to our staff for doing that.
Sure.
Can you expand just a little bit on, you said that the data showed 25% of our students are struggling or behind, or what was that stat?
So, we had 25% of our students had multiple failing grades. In other words, once we went virtual, and part of it was, again, we weren't able to prepare for that process like we are now. But what does the data really show me is that there's a percentage of our students that I'm not sure what we can do once they leave this building, because they do not have the support that they need. I had one student, I was visiting a classroom, and the teacher had asked the question, something about, what were the obstacles of when we went virtual. And this was a good student that just said, I wasn't motivated. I slept in way too late in the mornings. And then when I got up, I kind of kept pushing it off. And again, as you, certainly there are a group of our students that are motivated and have the structure at home to be successful. But the ones that don't, that's where we run into the problems. And again, I'm not 100% sure how to remedy that. I don't think everyone is equipped to be successful online because of that. And especially the younger they are. I would rather be face to face when I'm learning too, and I would struggle with the same kind of motivation pieces. So again, as we make decisions, keeping that idea that how do I need to at least see my high schoolers a couple times a week in order for us to keep this process going.
So your accountability piece online, do you have a way to track those students so that you know if they are in front of their computer doing their lessons?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They have to check in. And again, it's really up to the instructor of how long they need to be checked in, but they have to check in for every class.
Okay.
So if a class, they're working on a project, most of the time they stay on. And it's really been kind of fun to watch from my perspective. I was watching Mr. Thornley teach, and he had his four virtual students on his file cabinet, with his Chromebook. And I didn't notice it until he looked over there and asked them, well, what do you think? And there they are, And so
Yep.
the seamless instruction has really, really worked well. And again, does that accountability piece of having to check in going to help? Yeah, I really believe that's going to help. But again, it's like you said. I mean, our staff, there hasn't been a grumble in the process, and which is awesome. It's really a credit to them.
Any other questions? Anyone?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Ms. Giesregan?
I guess I would have to say the same thing as Dennis, is, many of the same things that they're doing at the high school, we are also replicating or following. Our students, however, we stay in cohorts, so we had taken our group and split them so that we have smaller numbers with assigned seating, so it's easier to contact trace and kind of go back and see who's with whom. Lunchroom, same thing, we've divided it up. So we have cohorts 6 feet away from each other, staggered grab and go, staggering them to release to go get their trays. It has been successful other than this past week where we had a couple of cases, but we are developing our system. Kids really know the system, and teachers have been doing a phenomenal job fluidly switching and being in that dual role as a blended teacher. And students have they understand the process. They've already experienced it, they've done it. We've had several students in isolation or being asked to stay home who've had symptoms, and then we've had the quarantine situation where we've had 2 groups leave. In those situations, kids, I greet at the door. That was the one thing that we learned the first situation was it's nice to have that face at the door. And so I'm that face to talk to parents, answer any questions, and to say, hey, here's the process. They're just going to log in. They're going to do the same thing they're doing at school, but now in a new setting, and that's at home. They are going to start at the hour on the hour at their periods, and that's how it goes. It's no different than being in school. It's just a different setting. And we've had very little issues. We did have one, and then when they do come in, I've asked about internet connectivity, and we've had a couple of them, but Hugh's been really good about trying to get the hotspots that we need in their hands to get their internet connected. Other way, we front-loaded, and we've had the kids download materials and things that they need on their Chromebooks so that they can use the same materials just in a downloaded format. So we're refining the process as we go, but it's getting better. And certainly somebody had to go first. It happened to be our school, our building. So the other 2 should be fine because they can learn from our process. But teachers are super appreciative of the Wednesdays. It really has alleviated a lot of stresses that it's put on them to have to be these dual teachers, and they appreciate it. I know they've said it many, many times, and they're doing an awesome job. I can't thank them enough for the hard work and effort they put in to be the dual teachers and blended teachers that they are. So.
Is there any questions, anyone? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Hopke?
Good evening, everyone. How are we doing? It's a beautiful evening. So just get into the first question we had, which was the dual platform. I would say that truly this has been kind of a challenge getting going, simply because we implemented the Seesaw platform for our students in 4K to 2, which we hadn't had before. Some teachers had had introduced a free version, but it was kind of sporadic. And then also our third graders had never used Google Classroom before. So this was an experience for both the students and the families, trying to understand how do you use this system, how do you get it up and running, how do you navigate through and do that learning. So it took some time to get things rolling, but it's gotten much better, and we're getting most of our students engaged. And then also, like with high school and middle school, our third and fourth grade, they're doing live streaming for basically all of their universal instruction. Our 4K to 2, those virtual learners, they have a morning meeting right away. That's a check-in, so we can get attendance on them and just make sure that things are going well. That's actually done. We've had most of our students engaged in that live session in the morning and whatnot. And sometimes we have students that come in a little bit late, and trying to stay focused, I think, is probably the most difficult piece of that live streaming, because they're at home and it's different. They're not in their seat. They're not fully engaged in the class. So I would say there's a few of them that we struggle with that. And just this whole instruction with our youngest learners, trying to really engage them in the Seesaw. So a lot of our teachers are creating videos for our 4K to 2 students and putting it into Seesaw. And it's not necessarily all for the students. It's more of showing parents, this is how you do this, and this is what we expect going through the lessons, which is far more engaging for the families, because then the parents understand, okay, this is what is expected for my student, and they can help guide them through those that are engaged, okay? And with that, with the new systems and whatnot, there's been a lot of time that's been dedicated to get this virtual stuff going, and trying to get all of the staff, building that capacity to operate in an efficient manner. As far as the impact on operations, there's been a number of interesting things. I'll start out with the positive. So with the playgrounds, what we did with the playgrounds is we split up the playgrounds into 4 different sections, because we got 4 classrooms in each grade level. And there was some concern when we got started that this might not go well, because you've got friends in different cohorts or different classrooms. And actually what we found is that it's been a much more positive experience, because we've got students that are playing with other students that they wouldn't necessarily have played with before, because they're in that classroom. So it's really it's really stretched our students to look at problem solving and teamwork and really trying to get along. So that's been a real positive to this whole experience. As far as some of the other concerns, I would say that that social distancing by the cohorts has been kind of a challenge, and trying to keep that classroom integrity. And this goes into our specialty classes, for instance, art and music, where we've got students that are going into different hallways and mingling of classrooms. So what we did is we're pushing art and music into the classrooms. Well, the negative aspect of that is that the classroom teachers aren't able to stay in their classrooms to do prep. So that it creates a few more challenges with that prep time and working to get ready for further instruction. Some other things that we're really seeing is, prior to this, we had a number of volunteers that would come in and read with our students, work with our students in some of the passing time. We're not able to do that now. So that is a drawback. So some of those students that got individual attention with reading and other skills, we're not seeing that. The other things, certain family engagement activities. For instance, the first activity that we would have right out the chute would be lunch with grandparents. That typically drew 350 to 400 people coming into our building, engaging staff, engaging students in a very positive aspect. And that's hard to kind of shift gears and not have that, because you truly start to lose a little bit of community feel. Other things that we're seeing, a sub shortage, and this actually led into us going into our contingency plan on Friday, where we were down a teacher in a classroom, so we had to switch things around. We had our art teacher covering in a classroom all day, and we had to switch our music and PE classes around. So it's making it a little more challenging as to how we tackle some of our challenges when we're not fulfilling all of our sub needs and really meeting the needs of our students. And lastly, with the operations, we definitely saw an impact on our before and after school program there. A lot more students aren't participating because we've got parents that are concerned about that mingling of students and are hesitant to really have students participate. Lastly, getting into the value of Wednesdays, I would say that it was pretty overwhelming that teachers feel that they couldn't do what they're doing if they didn't have that Wednesday time. Because we have a lot of teachers that are developing the videos for instruction for our younger kids, putting the materials together, getting that planning done, as well as engaging students and families in what's going on and helping further that instruction and understanding of what's being learned. Lots of IEP meetings. That was more of a directive that we were given, trying to get all of our IEPs addressed right at the beginning of the year. And then also a lot of time for building interventions and differentiation for students based on the data. So really taking that time to dig into the data and create the best learning opportunities for our students. So, any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Hupke? Okay, thank you very much.
Back in late July, we said we don't know what we don't know right now. And, well, that was true, certainly. So now we have had 4 weeks of face-to-face time in our schools with our staff back present and the majority of our students here in face-to-face instruction. I want to echo what was said, just so impressed across the board with the dedication and the can-do attitude exhibited by our staff across the district. And I've had an opportunity to be out in classrooms and just see the great way that teachers are really working to connect students that are learning remotely so that they feel part of the class and can take part in the activities and the learning, which we know is really important. We know that if we can keep students engaged, then we avoid the situation that Mr. Schurz described, where we have a slice of our student population that's just off the radar. We couldn't have anticipated with any accuracy what COVID would look like in terms of our student population, and now we do have a better sense of that. We have had many exclusions at the 4K, elementary, middle, and high school levels. Exclusions of students, and in some cases, exclusions of staff members who either have COVID-like symptoms or had indirect contact with someone who had a positive COVID test. And a really good illustration, two of them are, when I wrote this, I wrote about having 26 students quarantined and another 10 from the elementary and middle school, elementary and high school. Now that figure's more like 75 students in quarantine or somewhere thereabout. So, and that's on 3 confirmed COVID tests. So it does have sweeping impact. It's obviously, we want our students to stay healthy. We want our staff to stay healthy. I am just really pleased about the way our process has worked in the district. Despite the fact where we've had to have as many as 36 students that their parents get the call that they don't want to get, that their child's had an exposure, the process has worked quite well. And I take my hat off to District Nurse Sarah Hamilton and her staff and the administrators and the board for the good planning that took place up front. As we look down the line here, back in July, we'd had very, very few cases of COVID in Washburn and Burnett County, and not a whole lot of testing going on, and now we know that that's different, that there's quite a bit of testing going on. A really good illustration of the volume of testing is we had yet another student in the middle school who was waiting on test results a number of days, and it's because of the volume of tests to be processed. Now, thankfully, over the weekend, that family learned that that child was not COVID positive, but it is a good illustration of just how the capacity of facilities that are able to test our students and staff that have symptoms, they're being stretched, certainly so. We know through our local, regional, and across the state, the trends are that cases of COVID are on the uptick. Unfortunately, it seems unlikely at this point that we're going to see any significant decrease of cases in the near future, or a stabilization of the situation. And we can be reasonably confident that they would increase as we get into the flu season and cold weather and people in closer contact. Preparations to move to attendance level 3. And attendance level 3, just a quick refresher, is we'd go to 2 cohorts of students. So we'd have a cohort that would be in school Monday and Tuesday, and then remote learning for the remainder of the week, and we'd have a second cohort that would be in school on Thursday and Friday, and remote learning in the week, previous part of the week. We have some pretty significant concerns about our ability to sustain operations if we have staff, particularly classroom teachers, that have to be excluded or have to be quarantined because they have had a positive COVID test. And it's our determination that each building can handle no more than 3 teachers in that situation, and then we will have maxed out our pool of subs who have been really good about coming in and helping us out. But I say that because it's important that we plan for level 3. While we hope that we wouldn't have to go there, we know that potential certainly exists. So out of this, we come forward with a couple of administrative recommendations. The first being that we stay at attendance level 2 of the Rails reopening plan through the end of the second quarter, which would get us to January 21st. And that we would, as we are tonight, examine conditions during that January 4th committee of the whole meeting and be in a position to make a determination of what things will look like going forward based on conditions of the grounds. And the second item, and I do apologize for the vagueness of the wording of this, but as we know, our demand for remote only learning far exceeded our supply and what we were willing to support. We had a little over 160 students signed up for that back when we opened the request window. Over time, we've had students that whose parents have elected to not have them remain in there, and some of it's due to changing conditions at home where parents can't be home and they thought that they could, or students just not having success. And again, as Mr. Schurz described, conditions where students just disengage from the learning, or in a small handful of cases, students that are under an individualized education plan where it's just been determined that that's not a format that those children can receive free appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment with a measure of success. So we'd look to admit an additional 30 students into the remote only option beginning the second quarter. And you can see how the recommended allocations would be. Again, as a reminder, we've made a commitment to the remote only through the first semester at this point. And as we get into December, we'll evaluate conditions and come back and make a recommendation to you as a board about the remote only going forward. As we had done in August, our plan would be to communicate to families in advance and set a deadline for requesting the remote only learning. And I have to tell you, if we could take every student and every family that wants their students to learn remotely, we'd do it. And we just don't have the capacity to support that right now. So we have to do it in a way that provides a level of equity and is fair to all involved. So if we had, for any of those grade bands, if we had more demand than we had seats available, we would hold a lottery to determine who would get those seats. We know that at least we're confident that we'll be able to have better access to some of the hardware that's required for remote only, like the Chromebooks, as we get into the new year. And again, based on the determination of what that remote only format would look like going forward, that may be an opportunity for more students to come on as well. So that's a little bit of background, and that is the administrative recommendations coming forward from the administrative team, and I will be glad to field your questions.
Questions, anyone?
I do. Can you tell me how many, you said 160 signed up originally? How many spots
Yes.
were open?
Yep, so we did not have a fixed number of spots that were open. That'd be really, really difficult to do. What we had projected for based on our school perception survey that we conducted back in June, at that point, 10% of families had indicated that they looked for a remote-only option. And at that point, Mr. Miller, took the initiative to start to bring additional hardware and equipment in. We know that when we did our request period, we had about 15% of our students, so half again what we expected. As we look at the programming now, we think that we could admit 30 additional students based on the allocation that we've identified and still have the capacity to serve students when we have cases like we had at the middle school last week, where in one fell swoop we have, in some cases, dozens of students that are going to have to go on the remote-only learning.
When you say we're looking at a lottery,
Yes.
are you saying that let's say a student that had a potential medical issue, would that person have a priority over the lottery versus a student who says, I just don't feel safe?
Right, so if we have a student that has a medical condition that's been identified, that student would be treated in a different fashion than someone where a child didn't have a medical condition, but that was the parent's desire to have them in the program. We know that students that receive support under an individualized education plan or a Section 504 plan, which frequently takes those health conditions into place, those carrying the weight of federal law, that we wouldn't have them in a lottery. That would be based on what the team determination was for a free appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment.
So another question would be, how about if we have a student that has no medical condition, but maybe somebody in the family at home? Mom is recovering from cancer, dad, grandpa, would those students have priority? Or do we not recognize that?
We're gonna do the best that we can do to accommodate, family cases, but it would not be a guarantee that family in that scenario would receive priority over students who are not. And I will tell you, we had many contacts from families that did not request online or remote during the period, and there were many, many, many compelling stories of why they sought that option for their children. And again, if we could take them all, we would absolutely do that, but we're limited by capacity at this point.
What I'm looking at is, I think it's very sad that we as a school board who are here to educate students and do the best we can are now in a position to have to make decisions on the health of our students and their families. So the question I'm going to go back to you is say, what would it take for us to get to the point that anybody that asked for online virtual because of whatever reason they have would be granted that, rather than forcing them to come into our school because they didn't get through the lottery?
Well, yeah, so there'd be a variety of things. First of all, it would be just the equipment, the hardware to have. Our program has worked as well as it has because everybody has the same device. So they have a Chromebook. So it would be additional Chromebooks. It would be, the ability to provide hotspots to families that don't have internet access. And again, a supply piece. The other piece of it is just our teaching staff having the ability to have to teach in two different ways at the same time. And what we've done this fall, this is new. This is new. We continue to work hard to build capacity. You heard the principals talk about the value of that Wednesday time. And we're not there yet. But our end state, what we work toward is we do have that capacity built, and we do have the equipment available, and we can provide an equitable educational experience regardless of where a child lives or what their family's able to afford for internet access.
Thank you. I appreciate what you're doing, and I appreciate our administration, what you're doing also, but to me, we're in troubled times right now. You're doing the best you can, and we are as a board also. And my goal is just to make sure we keep our students, staff, and our whole entire community safe, and it's not looking good right now. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I think that everyone here, staff, students, board, everyone has the same goal, is to keep everyone as safe as possible in this trying time. So I think everybody is doing the best we can with what we have. So, and it's an ever fluid, changing situation. So if there isn't any more questions, anyone, any discussion, any other questions? Okay. If not, I am going to ask that we stay with the level 2 plan that we have through the end of January 21st of 2021. Revisit this again at the January 4th Committee of the Whole. And do I have a consensus to move this to the regular board meeting?
Can I just
Yes.
add an
Yep.
additional note on number 7, continuing to prepare to look at level 3? I think that's really important to keep an eye on and to try to avoid a full shutdown if we need to go into the cohorts to keep students and staff distanced and still in school at least 2 days a week. I just want to support the fact that, and ask you to continue to monitor that and keep that option in mind.
Okay. So again, do we have consensus to move this to the regular board meeting?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Thank you. All right. And we're going to move on then to item C. And as everyone has seen the update from the district nurse, we do have Sarah Hamilton with us tonight. So if anyone after reviewing that update, has any questions for Sarah, please, this would be the time to ask them now if anyone has any questions. Anyone? No? Okay, then we're going to receive and place that on file. Thank you very much for the update. We appreciate it. We look forward to next month's update. All right, we're going to move on to item D, discuss the Neola Policy Volume 29, Number 2 update. And again, we had several policy updates in this batch of updates. So was there any questions regarding any of those? If not, I ask that there be a consensus to move that also to the regular board meeting.
I just noticed a couple of just typos to be noted and corrected.
Okay, and did you send those to Caitlin?
I did not.
Okay, would you please do that? Okay, all right. So consensus to move those forward?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, and we're going to move on to item E, discuss the Neola Policy 167.3, public participation at meetings. We all agreed to the second option, and as you can see, it was put on board docs for you to review. I have one question regarding that, and I still notice that with, granted, giving people the option to speak their mind and talk about their concerns. My big concern is that we still have a 45-minute window. And so my concern would be that one person would come in and speak for 45 minutes on one or many given topics, maybe not at hand. And with it kind of being, we still have to run the meeting. And so if we could discuss that a little bit, that would be my only concern with the second option that we have seen on board docs.
I will say that sometimes if you let people talk a little longer, we learn more about them.
That is true. So is there any other discussion other than my one little item about the time frame?
So are you saying bring it to 30 or?
Or
Or do you want to just put an individual limit and keep it at 45 for the total?
Yeah, I guess that it just.
Doesn't it mean that, just my question, because it says 45 minutes, but it's divided by the number of people who sign up.
Right, so if one person signs up, they can potentially talk for 45 minutes.
So that's, how do we exclude that? Because I do agree that we should, 45 minutes, then that's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole nother issue.
That's a whole
but
nother, yeah. So
somebody can
how
talk
do
for
we
45
navigate that so that it's not just one person for 45 minutes?
I don't know, that would be the question, that would be the question of the wording, I guess.
Yeah.
My statement then would be with no individual going longer than 6 minutes. You can still leave the 45 in there for the
Yeah.
Right,
total.
but no individual
No
per
individual.
one topic or per
10 minutes or whatever we think it is.
Yeah.
whatever we think would be sufficient time to get their thought
Sure.
across, I think.
Well, if it's one person, 10
That's my
minutes
thought,
is
just
good.
for
10
an
minutes.
individual.
10 minutes is good.
No more than 10
10
minutes
minutes.
if it's.
Because it's one person,
Yeah.
it's 10 minutes is enough time.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I mean, if you can't really say what you want to say to us in 10 minutes, then you maybe were not prepared. Sorry. Maybe I shouldn't have said it that way. Whoops.
One way or another, one of us isn't. So
Okay.
I think we can change that to 10 minutes.
I'm okay with 10 minutes also.
Just, if there's multiple people, then,
We divide it by the
then we
45.
divide it by the 45. But if we only have one person, then I think a 10-minute window would be sufficient enough time
Correct.
to, Kate, are you okay with,
Yep, I'm fine
Okay.
with that.
okay, so go for it.
So then, item A, if you'll recall, boy, we really had some discussion around what the order of business meant.
Yeah.
And so, thank you to Mrs. Reesval reaching out to Neola and getting that clarification that it is in fact as indicated on the agenda.
On the agenda, okay, good, okay.
So so the question would be is, are we okay with that now that we've clarified what the intent was?
Yes. Can I ask one question?
Sure.
So if there's something that someone wants to ask that isn't on the agenda, how would they go about doing that? Do you know what I mean? So if we're only allowing them to what's on the agenda, if there's something else,
That comes
Can I
back to,
jump?
we've had issues where people have come and spoke about things that are not on the agenda. And in the past, our superintendent in our office would address those items and make a decision whether or not maybe that should be an agenda item for another time. But without giving them the opportunity to open up and explain what they're even wishing for, we wouldn't have any opportunity unless they contact us individually.
It's not whether or not it's to speak about something on the agenda, it's just the fact that public comments is on the agenda.
Yeah, so it's not that
yeah.
you can't speak of one particular thing, is that
Thank
correct,
you.
Caitlin?
That's all I
Thank you,
wanted to
Shannon.
understand.
Yeah, so
so
you
they can
can,
talk about anything.
yeah, they can talk about anything, they just need to, we just need to specify that that it is on the
The
agenda.
agenda.
Mhm.
All right, thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
We're good then.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then,
I wasn't prepared.
I'm not gonna live that down, am I? I'm so sorry.
I'm just
Okay.
Can we have a question?
Yes,
So two people could talk for 22 and a half minutes, but one person could only talk for 10?
No, one
No.
person more than 10.
yeah, if there's not more than one person, if there's more than one person, then we will divide it by those that 45-minute window. If there's only one, we're gonna give them that 10-minute window to explain or talk about what they need to.
Or
Or-
two people, they
no.
could each talk
No.
for 22 and a
22
half
minutes.
So no one person can speak
For more than 10 minutes.
No
There we
matter
go.
one person
Can talk for more than 10
For more than 10 minutes. Does that make sense?
So everyone is limited to 10 minutes depending on,
We're gonna
Yes.
have to.
A maximum of 45 for the entire group.
Right.
Keelan, do you know how to break that up? All right. I figured you would.
Is there,
We make it hard for you, sorry.
is there any other comments or questions regarding this document as it's shown here on our board docs? Okay, so if we don't have any other questions, can I have consensus to move this to the regular board meeting for the first reading? So that would only be the first reading.
Yes.
So that we can also go over this one more time here. Make sure we
Yes.
got it right. So,
Yes.
okay, great, thank you. All right, now we are moving on to item F, discuss the early college credit program and start college now request. Mrs. Myers?
Hello. I'm Dawn Myers, the high school counselor, for those of you I haven't met. What you have before you is the requests for our early college credit and start college now spring semester college classes. And it always comes up, the deadline to apply for spring semester is October 1st, March 1st for the fall. And unfortunately, the colleges don't have their schedules up, so we don't know exactly what courses these students will end up taking. So they end up applying for several courses. But you can see I've noted there on the ones that have taken or applied for multiple, many of them have already taken several and will only pay for 18 credits. And so you can see the notes there on how many we'll pay for spring semester for these students.
So the ones that are like for 7 credits or 3 credits, they have already taken credits already that we have?
Yes.
We have subsequently paid for already?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, that
Yep.
was my question. Okay.
Yep, so this is the amount of credits they have left that we will pay for.
Okay. This is a wonderful program, and
Yes.
it's really a good thing for our students to be able to do that. And I know from experience, personal experience, it helps quite a bit. So if you can take advantage of this program, please do, because it's a phenomenal opportunity for all of our students.
Do
So-
we have more students looking at this option now in our current situation, or is this pretty typical?
It's pretty typical. Yeah, there's always.
Yeah,
Quite a few.
there's quite a good group of students here. Yeah. So, okay.
Other
Does anybody have any questions for Mrs. Myers? Okay, thank you very much. Do I have, let's see here. We're going to receive and place that on file, Dr. Eslin, or?
We'll,
Do we have to approve it?
roll that.
Oh, I'm sorry, consensus to move this forward to the regular board meeting for approval?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then item G is the 30, 60, 90-day planning, and everyone has seen the 30, 60, 90-day planning. If there is not any questions or comments regarding that, I'd like to receive and place that on file as well.
Yes.
Okay. And item H, the financial update, Mrs. Grindell?
You were provided with the August financial statement, so I'll just run through that quickly. The beginning checking account balance was $663,000 approximately. We took in total receipts for the month of $7.7 million. The largest portion of that was that we did receive our August tax settlement. And then expenditures for the month, total expenditures were about 1.6 million, leaving an ending balance of right around 6.1 million at the end of August.
Okay, any questions? Okay. Consensus to receive and place this on file?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And then item I, approval of the vouchers. And everyone had a chance to look at that. Does anyone have any questions regarding those? Okay, if not, I would like a consensus to move to the regular board meeting as part of the consent agenda. Yes? Okay. Okay. I'd like to thank everyone. This has been a very trying time for everyone. My fellow board members, thank you for all the work you do. Staff, administration, thank you. Keep moving forward and doing the best that we can. And I'd like to motion to adjourn. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.